pues damos paso a esta nueva sesión del seminario DIPLOINMED. Hoy, de manera especial, es un seminario conjunto porque va en colaboración con el Seminario de Historia Internacional y Global, siempre aquí del Instituto de Historia del CCHS, del CSIC. Y tenemos la gran oportunidad de escuchar un tema muy interesante, un tema cuya temática es el sistema de espionaje, el sistema de recogida de la información, que ha sido uno de los elementos más importantes de la renovación de los estudios en la historia de la diplomacia a partir de los años 90, porque la diplomacia no es solo representar, no es solo negociar, pero también informar. Y en ese informar está una doble vertiente, es decir, informar de lo que pasa en el extranjero, pero también informarse de lo que está pasando en nuestra corte, en nuestro imperio. En este caso, hoy en día, hoy hablamos de Imperio Otomano. Y para hablar de ese tema, tenemos a Arda Akıncı, que es actualmente investigador postdoctoral Juan de la Cierva en la Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. Anteriormente ha sido Marie Curie Co-Fund en la Universidad de Salamanca, con un proyecto sobre las actividades de inteligencia otomana en el norte de África y Oriente Medio. Tengo que destacar también que completó su doctorado, su formación doctoral en el Instituto Universitario Europeo en Fiesole, Florencia, con una tesis titulada Confidential, Secret and Prompt Intelligence Activities Across the Ottoman Empire During the Reign of Abdulhamid II, y que ha sido sometida y defendida a principios de 2023. Su investigación actual se centra en los mecanismos de inteligencia y seguridad otomanos en la capital imperial, en Constantinopla, pero también en las zonas fronterizas del Imperio Otomano, con una extensión, como una extensión eso, de lo que Arda define como gran estrategia otomana y del Imperio Otomano. Antes de empezar con el seminario, damos pasos a Pablo León, que está en contacto a través de la plataforma online. En representación del seminario de Historia Internacional y Global de esta casa, del CSIC.
Hasta que se pueda conectar Pablo, no se me ve en cámara. Lo que quería decir era que desde el Seminario de DIPLOINMED nos da mucha alegría que los compañeros del Seminario de Historia Internacional y Global, que son del departamento vecino al nuestro, pues hayan querido sumarse generosamente a la organización de este seminario, y que esto da inicio a una cooperación entre ambos. El mes que viene también ellos organizan y nosotros les apoyamos con uno de Alexandre Coello de la Rosa de la Universidad Pompeu Fabra, y esperamos que así siga desarrollándose en lo venidero.
También por nuestra parte estamos encantados porque aquí estamos con el sultanato de Abdulhamid II, que se pone en esa frontera, ¿no?, del final del siglo XIX, cuando todavía es un área donde no sabemos si todavía podemos trabajar con temáticas, paradigmas, conceptos de la edad moderna, o si ya tenemos que pasar a los de la edad contemporánea. Estamos en ese límite y hoy esperamos que nos resuelva también esta duda, pero sobre todo nos presente el sistema de inteligencia del Imperio Otomano, Arda Akıncı. Muchas gracias por aceptar la invitación y tienes, como sabes, 40-45 minutos para tu presentación.
Muy bien, muchas gracias. Antes de nada, muchas gracias por invitarme, y Rubén, y por sus amables palabras, y Francesco, y estoy orgulloso de estar aquí, y es un lugar muy importante también. Pero hoy voy a seguir en inglés, que voy a presentar mi investigación. Es algo reciente, que se llama Web of Secrets, The Expansion of Ottoman Foreign Intelligence During the Reign of Abdulhamid II. So, This is a really recent research that I've started actually a couple months ago, that I was in Turkey in the month of May. I just arrived last week from the archives, so I'm bringing you fresh documents from the archives, and hopefully it's something that I can work more on in the next years. So before I start, I would like to give a brief summary of what I'm going to talk today. I'll start with the context and Ottoman domestic intelligence network, which actually was my doctoral dissertation. And then I'll talk about the ontological insecurity that the Ottoman Empire felt during the reign of Abdulhamid II. Actually, it was a longer process, but we will discuss that. And then I'll go into the details of Ottoman diplomatic missions, international cooperation, and imperial precautions for, let's say, external threats, and wrap it up with some examples and my, tentative conclusions. So the context, this is, again, it's an extension of my doctoral dissertation that I defended at the European University Institute in 2023, that I worked on the Ottoman internal intelligence networks and mechanisms during the reign of Abdulhamid II. So I focused on mostly the borderlands of the empire, the eastern borderland with Russia, and northeastern Africa, in Egypt and Sudan, with the invasion of British, the border with Egypt and British, Bulgaria, again the border with Russia, and finally the imperial capital in Istanbul. So to give a brief context of how the empire was at the end of the 19th century, it was in a deep ontological insecurity, feeling of ontological insecurity. By this, I mean the main problem, the key to understand the Ottoman actions in a general way, was to understand this insecurity that was caused by several different internal and external threats that the empire perceived. These were mainly the revolutionary organizations, the establishment of revolutionary organizations, mostly seen in the borderlands of the empire, such as the Bulgarian organizations, Internal Macedonian Revolutionary Organization, or the Armenians, like Hunchak committees, and the emergence of underground organizations as well. In Turkish, they are known as komitas, but we can translate it into English as committees, underground organizations that were mostly taken their sources from Italian Carbonari organizations, underground secret organizations. And then we also see the emergence and establishment of political opposition movements in the Ottoman Empire at the end of the 19th century, such as the Young Turks and the Young Ottomans, before the Young Ottomans, and then later during the reign of Abdulhamid II, the political opposition movements became much more powerful and associated with the military in the Ottoman Empire, and of course the emergence of public opinion, especially through the newspapers. These were mostly the internal threats that the empire perceived internally, but then there were also external threats that empire felt, especially in the borderlands of the empire, which were the expansion of the European colonial project, which targeted the Ottoman territories in North Africa, Middle East, in Caucasus, in the Balkans, such as the Bulgarian independent, first autonomy and the independence in 1878, and then independence in 1908, the British invasion of Egypt in 1882, Tunisia, French invasion of Tunisia in 1881, and Italian invasion of Massawa in 1885, and later Tripoli or Libya in 1911. So these all created or contributed to this ontological insecurity that was felt by the imperial administration by the turn of the century. And the main question in the minds of the imperial bureaucrats, the palace, was to find a solution to the question of how to save the empire, how to save it from collapsing, from dividing into smaller pieces, independent nation states or kingdoms, as seen in the case of Bulgaria. This forms also the part of what I discuss as the grand strategy of the Ottoman Empire, because when we are talking about grand strategy, recently the term started to gain different meaning as well. The grand strategy used to be treated only as a part of military strategy of an entity, of an institution, of a state or empire, but now it's gaining more attention as grand strategy, as a total employment of sources for securitization. So this was the context, actually, when I started working the 19th century Ottoman Empire, and more specifically during the reign of Abdulhamid II, we see the establishment of modern ministries, which play a constitutive role in the establishment of modernized, centralized, and professionalized intelligence activities as a part and extension of this grand strategy to secure the empire from collapsing. Apart from this, we witnessed the advances in communication and transportation technologies and the centralization and professionalization of the bureaucracy, including the intelligence services. So from here, this is the organization of the Ottoman intelligence network that I figured out in my doctoral dissertation, that with the establishment of modern ministries and professionalization and bureaucracy, we see all the ministries, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Gendarmerie, Ministry of Finance, taking different roles in organizing the intelligence. As I stated, I worked on the internal intelligence networks, which was mostly consisted of course, the Ministry of Interior and the provinces and autonomous regions of the Ottoman Empire, taking responsibility in engaging in intelligence gathering missions, as well as Ministry of Gendarmerie, especially in Istanbul, through law enforcement forces, the establishment of modern police forces in the imperial capital, and Ministry of Finance, arranging the annual or monthly budgets of the provinces or the law enforcement forces for spying and espionage purposes. And then I've also realized that there's another stage of this, which is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that organized the intelligence activities through the embassies and consulates that the Ottoman Empire had all around the world. So my talk today will be based on this final stage of the Ottoman intelligence network that focuses on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and foreign intelligence networks conducted or established by the embassies of the empire. To go more in deep about the perceptions of threat of the Ottoman Empire at the end of the century, as I mentioned, it was a mixture of internal and external threats. So it's most of the time it's really difficult to differentiate these two, as for example, revolutionaries, they were sometimes based in the Ottoman borderlands, such as the provinces, eastern provinces, in the case of Armenians, like province of Van or province of Erzurum, that were bordering the Russian Empire in the Caucasus. So they were crossing the borders, smuggling arms from Russia, taking arms and ammunition from the Russian military, and bringing them and distributing among the Armenian villages in the Ottoman provinces. So it's really difficult to differentiate these threats as internal and external, but most of them were really deeply connected. Or the political opposition movements, as we see in the Young Turks, most of them had to organize themselves outside the Ottoman Empire, or places such as London, Vienna, Paris, in order to be able to escape the this intelligence network that was established during the reign of Abdulhamid II. So they were, well, in really basic terms, they were an internal threat that were the Ottomans, but organized outside the empire, or sometimes in autonomous regions such as Egypt, in Cairo, like intellectual centers of the 19th century. So these are including European colonialism and public opinion, that we see. This is basically the perceptions of threat that we see at the end of the 19th century. And the Ottoman grand strategy was, again, we need to understand what was the main question in the minds of the imperial bureaucrats in the 19th century to understand the grand strategy. The key is to secure the empire. It's falling apart. It's losing the territories in the Balkans, in North Africa, in Eastern Anatolia, and against European colonial projects or national independence movements, or in cases of Northeastern Africa, in Sudan or in Arabia, some messianic movements as well. So this grand strategy was formulated by the empire to find a solution to the empire's ongoing insecurity. So with this, a total employment of all the sources available to the empire was dedicated to secure the empire. This includes military, this includes bureaucracy, this includes law enforcement forces, this includes the ministries, and this includes, as I will talk today, the embassies and the consulates all around the world. So with the use of all these sources, monetary, human power, and what else? And financial power, the empire wanted to know everything, which we can call omniscience, wanted to know everything. Not every report, I don't know if we can call every report, we are going to see now some of the examples, but I'm not sure if we can call all of them intelligence reports. But the empire wanted to learn and know everything that was going on, both inside the empire, the territories of the empire, borderlands, and the capital, but also outside in intellectual centers such as London, Vienna, Rome, or in the United States like Washington, Boston, in New York, or in Asia as well, in Tehran, or in China and Japan. So to understand the Ottoman intelligence networks, I will divide it into two different levels. One, the Ottoman international cooperation at, interstate level, and the other one, the imperial precautions. So I'll start with the international cooperation first. The international cooperation, we can say that it began in early 19th century with the after the Napoleonic Wars, with the 1815 Congress to organize, to cooperate between the empires of European powers to have a cooperation through organized, bureaucratized forms of diplomatic consultation and negotiation. These bases, later on, with the emergence of revolutionary organizations all around Europe, we paved the way to two important conferences and protocol at the end of the 19th century, at the turn of the century. First one was the 1898 International Conference on the Defense of Society Against Anarchists, which was the first international conference to organize against the anarchist and nihilist organizations in Europe and in Russia as well. So what is important for me, or for my research at this stage, is the Ottoman representation in this conference. The Ottomans not only sent a delegate, but participated in the extradition practices to extradite, especially anarchists, among the participants of the conference, and also it foresaw an international police cooperation among the participants of the conference. With this, we see also a change in the language of the Ottoman Empire while defining the revolutionary organizations, because in the documents you never see them as revolutionaries or as they call themselves, the Armenians or the Bulgarians. They were not revolutionaries, but up until this point, we mostly see the imperial bureaucracy refer to the revolutionaries as, well, malicious organizations, malicious people. But with this, the definition started to change to incorporate more the language of this international conference, and started to include and started to refer them as anarchists instead of malicious organizations. In 1904, this international cooperation expanded with the secret protocol for the International War on Anarchism. It might be one of the first examples of international wars, such as like the one in war on drugs of the United States. So in 1904, it was already there was already an international war on anarchism that was threatening not only the Ottoman Empire, but it was all the empires of the Western world was suffering from this anarchist threat, especially seen in 1898 in the assassination of Empress Elizabeth of Austria. And then we also see in, if I'm not mistaken, it was in 1905, there was an assassination attempt against Abdulhamid II after his Friday prayer in Yıldız Mosque next to the palace he resided in. In 1904, the Ottomans did not only sign the protocol for the International War on Anarchism, but they also proposed the use of portrait parlé, which was to identify the anarchists internationally. So use of pictures, photos of the anarchists that were convicted in order to facilitate the extradition practices that was decided in 1898. So this was the international level that the government, the imperial government administration had with other states against the anarchist threat and for the Ottoman Empire. The second part is the imperial precautions that were taken by the empire itself through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ottoman embassies, and consulting the foreign expertise. So foreign intelligence network, I divided into three as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, diplomatic missions, and foreign expertise. So Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of course, as the head of this network, was the center of the foreign intelligence apparatus that the empire was establishing through through contacting the ambassadors and together with the Ministry of Finance, deciding on the main issues of intelligence gathering missions, such as the budgets of each embassy and consulate. So how much to spend on spying purposes, how much to for inscription in local and national newspapers that the embassies were located in, and also deciding if some of the requests of on-demand request of spying budget from the ambassadors were adequate or not, if the government could finance such occasional and on-demand extra budgets for the intelligence missions. And the diplomatic missions, of course, they were they were at the core of these intelligence network by organizing the intelligence activities. They were deciding what to do and what not to do. They were the ones who were collecting all the reports from the ground and laying it to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, if they see it important enough, they were forwarding it to either to Grand Vizier or some cases directly to the palace, to the Sultan. And they were following, as we call, open source intelligence, such as the newspapers. They were constantly sending the newspaper clips to the center, to Istanbul, the newspaper clips that were about the Ottoman Empire, that were even remotely related to the affairs of the empire in the countries that they were. This ranges again from the United States all the way to China and Japan. And what I find extremely interesting here is that they also decided from time to time to outsource intelligence gathering missions and cooperate to private detective companies, especially in the United States and in Great Britain. I will mention them in a bit. And in the meantime, they were also cooperating with the local and national law enforcement forces when there was need. So in this way, the diplomatic missions were the core of this network, foreign intelligence network that I mentioned. Finally, I would like to mention also the foreign expertise that the Ottoman Empire contracted throughout the late 19th century and early 20th century, that we see this often in military. So the Ottoman Empire was inviting or contracting military officials from a wide range of empires, especially from Western empires, from France and from Prussia, even from the United States. They were inviting military officials to modernize its army. But we also see, especially at the end of the 19th century, with Célestin Bonin and Édouard Le Follon, two French policemen from Paris police department, that both of them were invited to the Ottoman Empire, to Istanbul, to modernize the law enforcement forces, the police forces that they were establishing in the imperial capital. That Célestin Bonin was the director of police department, Paris Police Department, and once he retired, he didn't retire. He had both jobs at the same time. He was getting paid by the Paris Police Department and by the Ottoman Empire at the same time. And when he was about to retire in 1895, they contracted another Frenchman who was also working at the Paris Police Department, Édouard Le Follon, to come to Istanbul. But what is interesting in the second case of Édouard, he did not. Célestin came directly to Istanbul and started working with the Ottoman police. But Édouard Le Follon spent almost 2 years in Europe, first tracking the Armenian revolutionaries in Switzerland and in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. In Switzerland and Italy, he followed the Armenian revolutionaries and sent reports before arriving to Istanbul to take up the job that Célestin Bonin left after retiring. And then afterwards, apparently he was extremely successful, that his three sons were also hired by the police department, and they worked until, if I'm not mistaken, 1907, until almost the end of the Hamidian era. So they did not only serve as consultants for the police forces in the Ottoman Empire, but also they helped the empire to surveil revolutionaries in Europe. So from this, I will go to some examples that are, again, as I said, I was really amazed by some of these reports that was sent to the embassies and then forwarded to Istanbul. This is a brief map that I made that does not include all the embassies and consulates, of course, but most of the reports that I found in the archives were from the embassies and consulates in the United States, Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C., from London, and the consulates in Great Britain, around Liverpool or Manchester as well. Western Europe, such as Berlin, Rome, Vienna, and Paris, and the consulate in Marseille as well. And apart from that, as I said, Tehran, and less from Asian countries. So this kind of map helps me to visualize how the extent of the foreign intelligence network of the Ottoman Empire at the turn of the century. It was mostly, we think that, okay, it was reduced to Western Europe or at large Western world, but it included also places like Asia, Eastern Asia, and Middle East, those places that was not under Ottoman control back then. And all these embassies and consulates gathered intelligence on what they deemed necessary. So the intelligence activities, intelligence gathering missions were shaped by local needs and practices rather than demanded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs organized the intelligence activities, the budgets, the personnel. Sometimes they were sending people from the Ottoman Empire to these consulates to spy on what they have seen as a threat. But most of the time, it was these local needs and practices that shaped the intelligence gathering missions. And most important thing to understand about the Ottoman intelligence missions of this period is it was focused on prevention of especially protecting the border and, again, security of the empire, protecting the border from arms smuggling by the revolutionaries into the Ottoman territories, border protection in the sense that introduction of passport controls and reducing the mobility of the revolutionaries from Ottoman Empire to Europe, and from Europe or from the rest of the world to the Ottoman Empire. So this is one of the, well, you can see the heading of the report that the Ottoman embassy in London decided to contract Slater's Detective Association in 1895 to run intelligence gathering missions to understand, to follow the Armenian revolutionaries, because London and in general Great Britain was one of the most popular destinations among the revolutionaries back then, and the embassy not having the manpower to do so, they decided to contract Slater's Detective Association, and they've done it for so long. At least from the documents that I've seen so far, it was more than a year that the detectives of the Slater's Association they were billing the imperial embassy every 3 to 6 months, that discussing, this is what we've done, this is what we've done, these are the newspapers that we bought, so we are adding it to the expenses, and that kind of really like sending invoices to the embassy to get covered for what they've done. So what we're doing in Great Britain, mostly to follow the Armenian revolutionaries, their rallies. There are several documents that the Armenians were going to have organize a rally in Hyde Park. So the detectives of the association, they were joining the Armenian revolutionaries, listening what they were preaching about, what they were talking in the rallies, and reporting it back to the embassy, or their underground operations. They're following their newspapers, some of the newspapers that are not newspapers like today. So it's not like they were going to kiosks in London and just buying one copy, but these were part of secret communications among the revolutionaries. So they were printed in an underground publishing house, let's say, and they were sent specifically to names and some specific addresses. So they were trying to receive copies of these newspapers of Hunchak, especially Hunchak newspaper, that they were sending to specific addresses. So, and something that really surprised me was one of them was they were following also Armenian theater and opera plays. So the ambassador from time to time was sending memos to the detectives saying that, or we'll see now to government officials as well, that this play might be really dangerous to Ottoman interests. So please, I want you to go and follow it and to see what they are really talking about and report back to me, and if possible, and if there's something dangerous to the Ottoman interests, that I would like you to pass it through the censor mechanisms. So this shows us what I told, the intelligence outsourcing and cooperation, because of course in the internal network that this is something that we don't see. The Ottoman Empire did not have any private detective companies as such. But in Western world, let's say in the United States and in Great Britain, they contracted such private detective companies. They were also, as I said, there was also international cooperation. So this was the letter that I mentioned just now. The Ottoman ambassador to London asked Lord Salisbury to investigate the theater play, the opera set by the Armenians in Shaftesbury and Duke of York's theaters, thinking that it might have malicious content and dangerous messages against the Ottoman Empire. And the ambassador asked Lord Salisbury to please, that how good relations that our countries have, I urge you to reconsider putting this play, giving permission to this play. And then Lord Salisbury, I think he doesn't go to the opera himself, but sends an agent of his to attend the opera and tells the Ottoman ambassador, say, okay, there's nothing wrong in this play, so don't worry about it. And what is funny is that they always finish their letters by saying, believe me, my dear ambassador, or believe me, my dear lord. And they're trying to convince each other, one, that the opera should not take place, the other, Lord Salisbury, on the other hand, that there's nothing to be censored in the theater play. They've also worked together with private detectives to follow the political opposition movements against Abdulhamid II himself. As I said, the Young Turks were mostly organizing themselves in the intellectual capitals of Europe, such as London and Berlin, Paris, and they were establishing newspapers as well. And one of them was Murad Bey, or we know him also as Mizancı Murat, by the name of the newspaper that he was publishing, Mizan. That he was a revolutionary and owner and publisher of an opposition newspaper in London. I think he was publishing back then the newspaper entitled Hürriyet, which is can be roughly translated as freedom. So there was they were receiving reports on the political opposition movements as such, and about Murad Bey or other members of the political opposition movement that were stationed or located in Western Europe. In the United States, we see more of the same story. I don't know if you ever heard of Pinkerton Detective Company. Some people, if you've played Red Redemption, and it was a huge part of the storyline, that a Pinkerton Detective Company. And funnily enough, the Ottoman Empire also having no manpower or forces in the United States, and it was really costly to send their own spies to the United States. Also, because of the language barrier, they've contracted Pinkerton Detective Company in different parts of the United States, mostly where the Armenians immigrated to the United States most, like Worcester or Boston, in Washington, in New York, and they were were following the Armenian revolutionaries. The United States at the time also perceived anarchists and nihilists as a common threat, so it was not a surprise that these companies, these detective companies, were offering their services to the Ottoman embassy as well in to follow Armenian revolutionaries. Again, similar to the Slater's detective company, this association that the Ottoman Empire here also was outsourcing the intelligence gathering missions. And as you can see on top, they were also using open source intelligence. The clips that were published in the United States, and using them as a source of intelligence and information about the Armenian revolutionaries, and they were sending it directly to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, such as this one: detectives watching alleged nihilist conspirators in New York. Extradition of Rebello, probably an Italian one, the choice of delegates to the Democratic States Convention. So they were also probably the United States government was also felt threatened by the presence of revolutionaries and nihilists in their territories, that they were aiding the Ottoman Empire in this process as well, which we see here. This is a secret communication from the police department of the city of New York from 1907. Written by Central Office, Bureau of Detectives. It was a confidential letter to the Ottoman Embassy in Washington, D.C., regarding the murder of Papas Tavshanjian, an Armenian revolutionary, confirming that the perpetrators are members of the Hunchak Committee, an Armenian revolutionary organization that probably was an internal dispute among the Armenians, but the Ottoman Empire that was constantly receiving updates, information, and intelligence about these, one of the biggest threats that it perceived at the end of the 19th century. So these are some of the examples. Of course, there are hundreds of documents in a similar fashion in the archives that we see the Ottoman Empire using open source intelligence outsourcing. This gives an idea about how the foreign intelligence network functioned at the end of the 19th century. That was on the one hand was the expansion or extension of the Ottoman grand strategy to securitize its borderlands, its remaining territories. But the Ottoman Empire did not limit this to its own borderlands and not only to the internal intelligence network. So it was not only an endeavor of securing the remaining territories, but they were constantly following what can be a threat to the Ottoman Empire in the future outside its borders constantly, and really putting a lot of effort and money in contracting private detectives, sending budgets to the embassies to hire spies or follow perceived threats in the empire. So this was a huge part of the Ottoman grand strategy in the 19th century as well. It was not only to secure what was remaining in Anatolia and parts of the Middle East and North Africa, but also securing what was remaining from outside threats as well. Revolutionaries, political opposition movements. These embassies were also sending constant updates to Istanbul about the imperial and colonial policies of the countries that they were established in, such as the British aims in the Middle East, in North Africa, in Britain, constantly sending newspaper clips to Istanbul to inform the imperial administration. So apart from this, the intelligence network, foreign intelligence network, shows that, as I said, the mixture of internal and external threats was not, the distinction between the two were not really clear cut. So they were also, of course, separate because domestic intelligence was organized by other ministries like Interior and Gendarmerie, and foreign was, of course, foreign intelligence was organized by Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They were separated, professionalized, but they were centralized. They were serving to one purpose, and they were working most of the time together to inform higher ranking bureaucrats such as the Grand Vizier and the palace directly from time to time. So they were separate, but pieces of a larger, a bigger whole. And the final really important finding of this research, I think, is the cooperation at international and local levels that the Ottoman Empire had with other countries and with the local intelligence mechanisms such as the private companies or the private local law enforcement forces, like as we've seen in the case of in London of the letter of Lord Salisbury, or in the letter or confidential letter of police department, New York Police Department to the embassy. So this serves also as an argument for a not completely different, but somewhat related discussion of how isolated was the Ottoman Empire from the rest of the world at the 19th century. So the traditional narrative was the sick men of Europe, that they were really already weak, that the Western powers already were discussing how to partition the empire, who's going to take where, what are we going to do with the Sultan, this kind of narrative that we know. Luckily, we are leaving it behind in the last couple of decades, but still that is persistent in the narrative that the Ottoman Empire was completely weak and was not able to have any power, any say in the international arena, in diplomacy, or in its own internal matters, so to speak. But then we see that the empire was part of that European concert that was established in 1815, but also these international conferences and protocols at the end of the century, when the Ottoman Empire was seen extremely weak, but they were on the table, sitting in the same table with Russia, with Great Britain, with France. So they were still considered a part of Europe, and they were included in these security mechanisms that were created mostly, of course, by the Western powers, but also the Ottoman Empire was a part of this system, let's say European security culture that was established in the 19th century. They were cooperating at an international level, and it was the same at the local level that we see in the police departments, in the foreign office of Great Britain, that the Ottoman Empire was asserting what was left of its power still at the end of the 19th century. And I really think it's important to understand that I don't think it's easy. It was easy to organize an intelligence mission in the United States to follow a few Armenians or follow some revolutionaries at the time that, of course, the empire was facing bankruptcy, facing continuous wars in its borderlands. Organizing these required somewhat an important imperial administrative decisions and focus, as I said, as the part of its grand strategy. So this will be pretty much it, and I would be really happy to see and hear some comments and criticisms as well, because, as I said, it's a really brand new research for me that I've started several months ago. So it would be really nice to hear what you are thinking about it.